This is what 213.2 billion naira looks like when visualized as towering skyscrapers of cash. It is a volume of wealth so large it is difficult to conceptualize as a single person's property. These assets were linked to Abubakar Malami, the man who served as Nigeria's Attorney General and Minister of Justice. A government minister earns a set public salary. When that same official is found at the center of a multi-billion naira empire, it creates a gap that the law classifies as unexplained wealth. Proving that this wealth came from specific criminal acts is a massive challenge. Traditional corruption trials can take decades and often fail because they require a beyond a reasonable doubt standard that is easy for the powerful to exploit. To bypass these delays, the EFCC turned to a non-conviction-based forfeiture lawsuit. This process relies on a different logic. The government doesn't have to prove you committed a specific crime. Instead, you are required to prove your assets were acquired through legitimate income. If you can't, the state takes everything. In January 2026, the EFCC secured an interim order from Justice Emeka Nwite. The court agreed there was reasonable suspicion that these properties were not acquired through legitimate means. The court issued a public challenge through national newspapers, inviting anyone with a legal claim to these assets to justify their ownership. The EFCC traced the suspected empire across 3 major hubs: Abuja, Kano, and Kebbi. In Kebbi State alone, assets topped 162 billion naira, including Rayhan University campuses, massive agro-allied factories, and the Asbir hospitality brand. The list continued into Kano and Abuja, spanning luxury buildings, the Mithaq hotels, and sprawling residential estates. This physical footprint was so massive it forced Malami and his associates into the courtroom. They had to explain how a public servant's career could produce such a vast portfolio. Malami and 14 family members and associates fought back, questioning whether the court even had the jurisdiction to freeze these assets. However, their defense lacked a critical component: evidence. While claiming ownership, they failed to provide bank statements or tax returns to show where the money to buy these properties actually came from. In July, Justice Joyce Abdulmalik delivered her ruling. She noted that the respondents had failed to provide any proof of legitimate funding. This illustrates the shifting of the evidential burden. Once the EFCC established reasonable suspicion, the burden moved to Malami to prove the funds were lawful. When the defense offered no proof, the scales slammed down in favor of the state. Simply saying, "I own this," is not a legal defense when you are asked to account for a 10 billion naira hotel. By failing to provide financial records, the defense essentially left the courtroom with no other choice but to finalize the forfeiture. The final verdict was clear. 48 properties, including universities, hotels, and plazas, were permanently forfeited to the federal government. The ruling was precise. While 48 properties were seized, 9 were spared because the court found the EFCC's evidence in those specific cases was insufficient. This case demonstrates the efficiency of civil asset recovery. It avoids the need for a criminal trial that could take half a lifetime to resolve. For public officials, the legal landscape has changed. It is no longer enough to hide behind complicated ownership structures. From now on, you must be prepared to show the receipts.